"You're not on the list, sir. And that patch looks like it was sewn by a child." That's what the young soldier told me, barely looking up from his clipboard, his tone sharp, mechanical, like maybe he'd turned away a dozen folks already that morning, and he wasn't about to make an exception for one more. You know how those places are so much protocol? You'd think it was the White House and not a patch of grass and sorrow. I just stood there, hat in hand, letting the breeze catch the edge of my old coat. My uniform pressed, but so faded the color had nearly vanished. On my shoulder, right where the years had worn the fabric thin, was a small patch Margaret, stitched in crooked letters, the only thing I ever let touch that sleeve after she passed. My wife had made it for me just before the cancer took her, and some days it felt like the thread was holding more than the jacket together, if you know what I mean. One of the younger officers smirked as I stood there. "Sir, this is a closed ceremony. Military funeral. You need clearance to step inside." I didn't answer, didn't argue, just adjusted that patch with my one good hand, the other made of cold metal and patience, and stepped back, standing just beyond the gate back straight, boots together, eyes fixed on the flags, and the white canopy billowing beyond the iron bars. I wasn't here to make a scene. I was just here to say goodbye, to keep a promise I'd made on a dirt road in Basra 3 decades back. Yeah, that happened. If you think nobody should be turned away that way, well, type the word honor below. I'll wait. I stayed put, right outside the gate, the sun crawling higher behind me, stretching my shadow across the gravel until it seemed like the past itself was reaching for those flags. My leg ached, not that anyone noticed. People in their dress blues walked by, showing credentials, barely glancing at me. Maybe one or two flickered with pity, maybe confusion, but nobody stopped. A cameraman adjusted his lens deliberately, turning away. Inside, rows of white chairs filled up, flags lined the central path, and a Marine color guard rehearsed their movements with that silent, razor-sharp precision you only see at funerals and battlefields. I glanced down at my Badhea faded plastic rectangle. Not digital, just laminated crack, the photo 2 decades old, my name, my unit, my discharge status. I offered it again to the same guard, but he didn't even reach for it. "Sir, that's not valid anymore. You're not on the list," I said, soft as I could. "I came to honor a friend." Name of the deceased General Patrick Whitmore. The kid tapped at his tablet, glanced up. "Family." "No. Served with him. 34 years ago." That's when the discomfort crept, and he didn't want to say no, but rules are rules. "I'm sorry, sir. We can't make exceptions." I nodded. "What else do you do?" I stepped back and waited. A gust rattled the flags. The edge of my coat flipped up, showing the dull shine of the mechanical joint in my leg. I pressed the fabric down, slow, careful. That's when one of the officers leaned to his buddy and whispered something about dinosaurs, maybe, or ghosts, because that's how they saw old men at the gate. I heard it, but I didn't turn. Just kept looking through the bars, watching the crowd assemble, waiting for my moment. And I thought most of the folks inside had never known men like Patrick except for the news clippings and the speeches. They didn't know about the roadside bombs or the way Patrick's voice cracked when he said, "Don't let them bury me alone." I kept that promise for 34 years, no matter what, and I wasn't about to quit now. A bunch of young soldiers wandered by, laughing, tossing an energy drink back and forth. One stopped, eyed me up and down, and joked, "Hey, we'll let Grandpa out of the museum?" The others snickered. The one who spoke peered closer, pointing at my shoulder. "What's that, a tribute?" I didn't answer, just adjusted my collar and folded my hands behind my back. One flesh, one metal, both too stubborn for my own good. "Margaret," he read, squinting. "She your wife? She make that for you?" Looks like it came from a pillowcase. Not cruel, just careless, which sometimes cuts deeper. He reached out, 2 fingers only, tapped the patch like it was a joke. My hand rose, slow, just enough to cover her name. Then I looked him right in the eyes, not mad, not sad, just steady, and something in my stare made his smirk slip. He backed off. Nobody intervened. Nobody said a word. That's the military way, sometimes silent when you need noise, noisy when you crave silence. Inside, the national anthem started faint, windblown. That sound still straightens my spine, even if nobody's watching. I stood my ground, didn't flinch when the honor guard presented arms, or when the first rifle volley cracked through the morning. The young guys came back, eyeing me again, muttering that guy hasn't moved. That's either dedication or dementia. They laughed, but softer this time. One step closer, tall. Maybe 22. Margaret, was she your wife? I didn't respond, just held her patch a little tighter, let the silence say everything. Eventually they wandered off, and I eased down on a stone ledge, letting the ache in my leg catch up with me. My prosthetic made a dull metallic sound on the bench. I took my hat off, ran a shaky hand over Margaret's patch, smoothing it flat in my lap. The stitches were crooked, the letters uneven, but every thread was love. Sometimes you don't see it until it's gone. I folded it once, twice, pressed it to my chest. No cameras caught it. No uplift. No one even noticed, except for a captain who'd been watching from near the gate, his uniform crisp, bronze star gleaming, but his eyes soft with something I recognized. He didn't speak, just turned and walked toward the command tent. I kept my hand over Margaret's patch flesh, not metal, while the distant ceremony floated over. Muffled eulogies, commands, the hard echo of boots. Out here, it was just wind and memory. I straightened my pant leg, wiped the dust from my prosthetic, then put my cap back on and stood again, slow, deliberate, back to attention. No one told me Tono one was watching, but I stood like she might be, or like Patrick might somehow see the man who'd once dragged him from a burning Humvee under sniper fire. I remembered his voice, cracked. You shouldn't have come back for me. I didn't. I'd whispered. She told me not to leave anyone behind. He never said her name, but he always knew. The wind caught my coat again, and I let it. With no audience, no music, no orders, a saluted, not a perfect textbook motion. My right arm metal, stiff, a ghost of its old self. But the meaning was perfect, a salute to a friend, to a promise, to a memory never surrendered. At that exact moment, the captain who'd been watching slipped into the command tent. Sir, there's someone outside. I think you'll want to see him. The man in charge, General Christopher Doyle, turned, hair mostly gray, medals lined up, eyes sharp but softening at a name, Elias Rowe. He paused, then nodded, like someone unlocking a door only he could see. He handed his ceremonial binder to an aide, pulled off his gloves, and walked out, not toward the podium, not toward the family, but straight across the grass toward me. People turned, whispering, cameras adjusting, not understanding why the highest-ranking officer would abandon his post in the middle of a funeral until they saw him stop just inches from me. He looked me up and down, prosthetic leg, faded uniform, old patch. Then, without a word, he extended his hand, not in command, but in respect. I heard you wouldn't come, he said low, but he made me promise. If you showed up, it had to be you. Had to be me for what? I managed. He gestured, and an aide brought out a polished wooden box, the urn. He wrote it into his final orders. Only you could carry him to rest. My voice almost broke. I thought they'd forgotten. Doyle shook his head, eyes glinting. You're the reason he made it to 30, the reason he became the man we're burying today. He leaned in, and I'm the reason he lived to meet his granddaughter. The urn was heavier than I expected. When Doyle placed it in my hands, the whole crowd went silent, every soldier, every guest, even the press. Doyle walked beside me, not leading, not following, as we went through the gate and across the field to the altar. No music, no orders, just the hush of uniforms and the slow steps of reverence. Young soldiers stood at attention, heads up. The one who'd mocked Margaret's patch stepped out, whispered, Sir, I'm sorry. And I didn't stop, didn't break stride. Sometimes an apology is heavier than an insult. At the platform, I set the urn above the folded flag, removed my cap, rested my palm over the urn, then stepped back. No anthem, just stillness. Then, like a wave, veterans in civilian clothes rose saluting, removing hats, some with tears. A woman in a dress uniform whispered, Welcome home. I blinked, not from the wind. The rifle salute cracked the air, taps echoing, each note sinking deep. As it ended, Doyle said softly, I know you didn't want recognition. I looked down. It was never about being seen. Some things deserve to be remembered, he said. An hour later, after everyone left, a small group gathered by an oak tree at the edge of the cemetery. A simple plaque read, In honor of Staff Sergeant Elias Rowe and Margaret Rowe. Because honor is not given, it's carried. I knelt, buried Margaret's patch beneath that tree. Nobody told me to, but it said more than any speech ever could. Doyle joined me. They'll come here, I said. They already are, he replied. I walked away, no speech, no wave, just quiet steps down the gravel path. This time, people stood, not to stare but to honor. Because uniforms fade, but some promises, some names, they never do. If you typed honor earlier, thank you. If you subscribed, welcome. And if this story touched you, remember, we stand together, even in silence. See you in the next one.